What is going on, everybody? Sean Daniel here with Guitar Control, and today we're going to talk about maybe taking some chord progressions you probably already know, a lot of open chords, some of the first chords that we ever learn on guitar, and talking about how to play them in different ways, and also different scenarios where you might even want to play them in different ways. Talking about dynamics, talking about chord voicings, and I'm also talking about you click in that link below to grab the tabs for this, because sometimes it can be a lot easier to just kind of see these from a different perspective, okay? So the chord progression that we're gonna use is gonna be really, really basic, really simple. It's gonna be C major to G major to E minor, okay? So if we talk about bars, we're gonna have 2 bars of C, 1 bar of G, and 1 bar of E minor. So it's gonna be a 3-chord progression. Really pretty common. You may have already seen this chord progression. You've already probably played it a lot. We're just gonna play it like this. C major, 2 times, G major, E minor, okay? So this is gonna be it. You can strum it however you want. You don't have to play it at this speed. You can slow it down, you can speed it up. I'm just going down, 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 up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, up, down, 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 up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So however you wanna count it, that is gonna be what we're working with, okay? So maybe, let's say the whole song, maybe it's something you wrote, and again, it doesn't have to be these chords, we're gonna learn movable shapes, so this will work with absolutely any chord that you wanna do. But maybe you kinda wanna switch up the feel of the song, add a dynamicism to it, in a different way, but without changing the chords, because maybe like melodically you've got something you wanna experiment with, or maybe it's a different part of a song, like maybe you want the verses and the choruses of a song to sound different, even though they're the same chords, okay? We're gonna start with different things we can do for the C major chord, all right? The number one thing is to remember what notes go in a C major chord. It's just a C, an E, and a G. Any way you wanna split that up is gonna be an acceptable replacement for a C major chord. Specifically, we're actually just gonna take 2 notes of that. We're just gonna take a C and an E, okay? We're actually gonna leave the G out of it. And we're gonna do this by grabbing the 8th fret on the low E string. This is a C note, okay? And if we go through the major scale from C, the 3rd note, C, D, E, is gonna be a note that is in that chord. In fact, this is really the same thing as this, okay? It's kind of like the bottom, the lower part of the C chord, but we're gonna do it here on the low E string because I think it's a little bit easier to really just kind of get maybe more vibrato in it from this position with this hand shape. I'm using my middle finger to grab the 8th fret and my pointer finger to grab the 7th fret on the E string, which we're gonna get to this fret more in a second, but it's just a different way to kind of jump into this. So maybe if we have a C to a G to an E, and we gotta switch. See, it already sounds a little bit different, even though they're the same notes, and the reason is because it's contextual. If I'm going from this E minor chord to this C major chord, it's kind of how I have been playing it, but if I go from this E minor chord and then slide into it like that, it already has a different kind of texture, different kind of feel, even though it's the same chord, all right? So the way I did that is I went from this E minor shape here, and then I took my middle finger, and I'm actually starting on the 2nd fret. What fret you're starting on doesn't matter because we're just using it to slide into a C. It doesn't matter how far I slide. I could start from, again, this is the 2nd fret on the E string is F sharp. I can slide from a F sharp to a C, from a G to a C, from a G sharp. It doesn't really matter where you start. It's more of getting into the new chord position, shape, however you want to look at it. Okay, so this is just one different example of how we can move that major chord around, even though this is representative of that major chord. It's not a full major chord. Chords technically need 3 different notes. That's why this guy right here, we have 5 strings we're playing. We have a C on the A string, an E on the D string, open G, 1 B, which is C, and open E. So we have C's, E's, and G's, okay? Don't forget those open strings are helping us out. So actually, if you still want to incorporate those strings into this chord, you can still do that. Like maybe you want to grab that, if you're playing fingerstyle, you can grab that open G with it. A lot of different things to do, but we're just kind of moving our way through the fretboard in a way that we're still keeping the integrity of that chord, even though we're only playing 2 of the 3 notes needed. Now, the next chord we went to is a G major chord. Let's use that same piece. See there, there's that same shape we already have. In fact, you can always go from G to C to back again just by sticking on the same string. And it already gives you kind of like a different feel, right? This is kind of a good example of maybe how you want to change it up a little bit. But we're going to do a higher pitch, a higher octave of this G. Now in the A string, we can find a G note on the 10th fret. Okay, it's right here. We can do this exact same shape as far as those are concerned. And this is the next highest G and the next highest B that we can find here. All right, another great way to slide. Okay, so again, C to G or G to C, whichever order you do it in, is super common in so many different songs, okay? And now we have different ways we can do it. We can go from this G on the E string to the 8th fret C on the E string. Or we can go from the 3rd fret on the A string to the 10th fret on the A string. All are suitable replacements for any way you want to play it. So it's just kind of good to maybe make like a hot zone note of where these root notes are, and it's really going to help you out as far as expanding your playing from different spots. So we can start. In fact, let's jump out of this C shape, and instead of going to the open G shape, let's take this all the way down to this G chord. So instead of C to G to E minor, let's go C. So I think that's just kind of a cool way to maybe mix it up a little bit, because you know, this can kind of get bland and boring if it's the same thing over and over again. So every now and then, just add some of that hot sauce, some of that wasabi G major chord, and then back to E minor. But let's also talk about maybe some stuff we can do for a minor chord. All right, E minor is going to be essentially the exact same thing as a major chord, except those 3 notes that I already told you about make up any chord. The middle of that is flattened, okay? So let's go back to the C major chord we did as an example earlier, where we had a C and an E. We can make this minor, because this is just a root note, and it's major 3rd. We take this note, we flatten it. Now we've got the inner workings of a C minor chord. That's really what we're looking at here. Major, minor. Okay, we can do the same thing with the E, we just have to find an E. So the 7th fret on the A string is an E. So it's almost kind of like an inverted power chord, if you know power chords. 7A, 5D. Okay, those two together make a replacement for an E minor chord. We can even keep the low E string in here. And it kind of has a different sound than a little tighter maybe, because there's actually less strings that you're hitting. So all these different chord voicings, the voicing is just a different way to play the same chord, really start to add up to make a different kind of sound. So we can actually replace the whole of our chord progression right now. C, G, E, C, G, E, to C, to G, major, E minor. And we can go back to any of them. We can go back to this G. So it's really kind of a good mental exercise too while you're playing, to be like, okay, where are those root notes that I'm searching for? How can I get there in time by maybe just adding these slides and keeping it in time, all right? And again, all this stuff is movable. So that E minor is a good example of like, oh, we can actually use the open strings to still help us. In fact, an E minor chord is just an E, a G, and a B. So you can get the top strings in there too. That's why right here, you know, we're playing 6 strings, only 2 of them are fretted. So if we still fret those same 2 in different chords, we can still get a nice open, 7, 5, open, E minor sound. And this is stuff that you just want to maybe be aware of, because you can really get creative in how you play certain chord voicings. Like, you don't have to get crazy and play like, you know, minor 7, flat 5 chord voicings, or, you know, augmented chords or stuff like that. Take the same major minor chords that everybody knows and loves and play them in different ways, because then you can really kind of take time and start working on the transitions between those. Like, I really think that these sliding kind of techniques sound really cool, especially on an acoustic guitar, because, you know, it doesn't take away from the volume so much, it still just sounds good. And that's where it comes to like dynamics of a song. Like I said before, we're going to talk about like maybe the verses of a song versus a chorus. Usually the chorus of a song should have a little bit more energy, and that's where like the hook is to drive people in. So if it's the same chord progression, maybe we can take these 2-note dyads, like pieces of chords that we started to replace the open chords with for the verse, and then when it gets to the chorus, we can go to the open chords. So again, you know, here's our progression. Maybe for the verse of the song, we start out playing the 2-note style, right? So we have C to G to E minor, right? And then however many times you want to go around on that for a verse. Could just be an intro if you want. You know, 4 is a solid number, solid even number. And then maybe after the 4th time, let's say, you know, whatever the lyrics might be, we're gonna go to the chorus. It already sounds so much bigger just because it's in contrast to the smaller voicings that we used. And then we go back, you know, to the, you can use palm muting, like what I'm doing right now. I'm kind of having my palm hit the string, so I'm getting more deadened sound. All these techniques are things that you can kind of incorporate into, you know, your chord progressions to make them sound different, even if they're the exact same chords. So I think that's kind of a good example of how you might want to think of dynamics in your playing. It can be more than just hitting things harder and softer, even though that's a part of it. I think the arrangement, which is really kind of what we're talking about here, how you want to arrange different chord progressions, is really super important in playing really any instrument. So really, if you have any questions on this stuff, let us know in the comment section, because we'd love to kind of get back to you, help you out, and maybe even just kind of tell us what some of the tricks that you use in your own chord progressions are. And definitely, after you have taken all that in, feel free to click on any of these other videos around here, because we have other awesome videos on everything you'd ever want to know, guitar-wise, from myself, other great instructors. And again, always looking for your feedback, so hit us up in the comment section, hit the like button, subscribe, and we will talk to you all soon. Thanks a lot.